Varney. Tammy Bruce, Independent Women's Voice president, is with us. I think the man was totally out of bounds.
Well, look, I agree. Part of being, if you want to look at this as being the enemy of the people, is when the press, which is a fundamental part of our democracy and freedom, does not do its job. And you saw that played out right there. Jim Acosta once again made himself the story. He made his own job the story. It was an attack on a woman who's just trying to impart information to the press about what the White House is doing in a very volatile world. And yet, for that fellow, it was about him. And then he became an infant and stomped out of the room when he didn't get his way. That is what makes you effectively, in a larger, broader sense, an enemy to the American people. Because what did he ask any questions about the nature of what's happening in Europe, about the economy here in America, about what's going on with China and with North Korea, about American crime and about MS-13. No, it was about Jim Acosta, and that is his failure.
And at that press briefing, there were top-of-the-line people who were looking after America's security. They appeared. There were no questions, from Acosta at least, there were no questions to them about some real substance there. Oh, no, it had to be about him and the media.
They've abandoned their charge. They've abandoned their job, which is important to this republic, for the American people to get actual information that affects their lives. And whether or not Jim Acosta is happy is not of our concern. We do not care if he's upset, if somebody appreciates him. We want information. And that particular network is failing because they do not provide it. This network survives and does well because Americans of all stripes know they're going to get the information they need to live their day and to know what tomorrow will look like. That's our job.
You're hired.
Thank you. It was easy.
I've got more for you. Hold on.
All right.
The New York Times defends the hiring of their new tech writer, Sarah Young. Now, she has a history of posting racist and ugly texts. Look at this one for a start. Oh, man, it's kind of sick how much joy I get out of being cruel to old white men.
Lovely.
I open my mouth to politely greet a Republican, but nothing but an unending cascade of vomit flows from my face. Now, they've hired this lady, despite those tweets or texts, whatever it was, but they did not, but they actually fired another tech writer, I think, who made nasty comments about gays.
Yes.
What's going on?
So that was another woman, another tech writer in February, who they had hired to do the same sort of job, but then fired when older tweets of hers came out as well. The difference is between the two is that first writer, and dealing with issues regarding African Americans and gays, had offended progressives. That was that problem. In this case, you're looking at a young woman who actually I think will fit in quite well with the New York Times, who has a history on their editorial and opinion page of racialist editorials. Questions about, can my children ever be friends with white people? That's an actual headline. Charles Blow writing about the white extinction fear amongst white people. It's very racialist. It's a framework that really seems to me to seek to create some kind of division and resentment between the races. And so I think she'll fit in quite well. She's arguing, though, that her tweets were pushing back on people who were being racist to her, so then blaming the targets of her own tweets. And the New York Times buys that, and in their statement reiterated that effectively. But remember the job she's going to get. She's taking on an editorial board position, which means there'll be no bylines. And I think bad ideas should be in the public realm so that we can push against them. In this case, suddenly it will be anonymous, and it will be effectively couched in the cloak of what you get with the anonymous editorials at a newspaper. And so we learn more about the New York Times. It is a shame. I'm not a fan of people getting fired for having awful opinions, but in this case, it now will set the tone. She's in that board of setting the tone for the position of the newspaper, which is to seek to change societal opinions. And that becomes a problem, and the American people now know that that's the case.
I'm tired of my culture being directed by the New York Times.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Americans are as well.
I'm done. Thank you. Tammy, seriously, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
That's good stuff.